Hello, everybody, and welcome back to the podcast. Still unnamed, but that is all right. We're still working on that. The marketing department has not yet been able to find any sort of branding that properly reflects what these episodes actually are. But before I continue, I'm going to quickly read out the memo that was sent to us via the HR department, and it says this. According to a recent poll, 30% of the current employees of the company identify themselves as undead. This shouldn't be a problem unless, of course, it's zombies. In that case, it would be very, 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 very bad. As you move freely throughout the office, make sure you have your requisite ID badge and your company-sanctioned vial of holy water. Signed, the HR department. And those guys and gals in the HR department are just so hardworking, and you know, it was probably cost the company a pretty penny to get all that holy water, especially since they fired our in-house priest, so they would have had to outsource that. So I am joined this episode by Mitch. Say hello, Mitch.
Hi. Guess who's missing his holy water?
Oh no! You gotta find that. I'm not gonna lie.
Oh, it's gone.
Oh no! There was an incident on my way over here, and there's an employee named Clyde, and I swear he looked like a zombie, and I threw the water on him, and it didn't really do anything. It sort of glistened.
So you just splashed water on our friend, our coworker.
He's not my friend, so I didn't feel super bad.
Your acquaintance.
He's just sort of a slack-jawed guy who's very big and sort of lumbers around. His foot's in a cast, so he's dragging it behind him, and he was like grunting a lot. Anyone would have made the same decision, all right? Better safe than sorry.
Right, I mean, it's your life on the line.
Exactly. And while we're floating right now in 0G in what appears to be some sort of a space or galaxy-themed kitchen, and I stumbled in here off the food court, can you explain what the heck this place is?
So I'm not really the person to ask, unfortunately. So this is the Cosmic Kitchen. I'm just a team lead here. So like I've put in my blood, sweat, and tears, and I've been promoted. I'm above certain other employees, but I ain't management, so I still don't know where we get our ingredients. I don't know why this room is in 0G, but
I don't understand. I can't read the labels on any of the ingredients. It's all written in some sort of an alien script.
oh, don't worry about it. It's like Orbesh or something. I don't know.
Oh, okay. Well, everybody knows what time it is. It's time for everyone's favorite part of the show, real or fake Batman villains. All right, so I have got in front of me a list of Batman villains, and then I also have some of my own thrown in there, and it will be your job to try and determine whether or not these are real. Are you ready?
I will try. I wouldn't say I'm the biggest Batman fan, but I think I know enough to be able to do good at this.
All right, let's start with number 1, Birthday Boy.
No.
That's real.
No.
Alrighty, moving right along.
Oh, that's
Number 2, Onomatopoeia.
No.
Also real.
What the heck? Okay, hold on. Time out. Look, Calendar Man is a thing, right?
Oh, trust me, I already passed Calendar Man, but I knew that everybody knows Calendar Man.
Yeah, but like, you can't have Calendar Man and Birthday Boy or whatever. Like,
Birthday Boy, I don't think it has anything to do with actual days. I think it's just a creepy serial killer who has a party hat and a burlap sack on. I think that's it.
Okay, that actually sounds kind of creepy.
Yeah, I mean, it is. And Onomatopoeia is great because his victims are superheroes that have no superpowers, so Batman and Green Arrow have been targets for this villain. He only speaks in onomatopoeias like click, pow, thud, etc. He came up against Batman a few more times than Green Arrow and lost. What's more interesting about this villain is that he is created by writer and director Kevin Smith.
Wait, so do the words that he like the onomatopoeias he says out loud, is that like his powers? Can he be like bamf and then like teleport?
I'm not gonna lie, it says nothing about that, so I don't think so. I think he just speaks. I think it's probably like a riff off of just the ridiculous onomatopoeia like noises that are in comics.
So
And
it's
so
just
it's a
like whack.
character that only speaks in onomatopoeias. But
Bam, I'm gonna hit you with.
yeah, he doesn't have any like superpowers. And so he goes up against people who also have no superpowers, which, by the way, I fundamentally disagree with saying that Batman has no superpowers. Fundamentally. Like, I'm sorry, but he is pushed so far beyond human limits of everything. I mean, come on. Anyone who can astral project is not a normal human, you know?
That's an interesting conversation, right? Because like, what constitutes a superpower? Because there's tons of heroes that don't have powers, quote unquote, that are still wholeheartedly considered superhuman.
I mean,
Superheroes.
anybody who can do a backflip off a wall and kick someone in the face, I mean, just like ice cold, like not expecting it. You get to a certain level of acrobatic ability, I'm just going to call you a superhero because, I mean, that's not normal. Number 3, Dr. Freak.
I'm pretty sure Dr. Freak is real, actually.
You are correct. Dr. Freak is real.
Yeah.
Super powerful version of LSD that he uses on people.
Okay, I didn't know that.
Yeah, he's a former Vietnam soldier, and he just uses LSD on people, and he's dressed like he should be part of the album cover of one of the Beatles albums. All right, let's try number 4, Johnny Karaoke. Real or fake?
I think that's just ridiculous enough to be real.
It's absolutely real.
Oh man, are all these real? Is this just like a trick segment?
Flamingo.
Okay, that might be fake actually.
Real.
Oh.
Man dressed in pink who rides a pink motorcycle, uses a whip. Let's see. There's more to the character than that. He's a serial killer who eats people's faces.
Huh. Wow.
Let's
Batman has some dark villains, I swear.
the darkest one yet, just to get a load of emoticon man. Real or fake?
Is this like a new one?
Real or fake emoticon man?
I'm gonna say fake actually.
This is real.
Oh, they're all real, aren't they?
Let's see. This villain led his own gang that wore masks with emoticons on them, but they were no match for Alfred. Alfred beat this gang, so they weren't that good. And finally, let's get to some of the ones where you're really not going to be able to tell if this is something from the abyss of my mind. Bootface. Real or fake?
Real.
That is real.
They're all real.
You want to know a fun fact about this one?
Yeah.
Bootface was once using a flamethrower, and Batman kicked him in the face. That's his origin. He has Batman's footprint on his face. He has no powers or special abilities. He's just got a boot print on his face.
That's just like a horrible identifying feature.
Yeah, it's
like it's just so much easier for GCPD to hunt him down.
Yeah, I don't understand what some of these artists were smoking when they came up with these characters. Maybe they had Dr. Freak in the writer's room. I'm not sure. Let's see. One last one. Mrs. Boxing Glove. Real
Did you
or
just
fake?
make that up? Is that pause just because you were thinking of an outrageous? That's not real.
This is a very long list, and I have to keep scrolling. Real or fake? Mrs.
Fake.
What is it?
Fake.
You got one!
Yeah!
So that means
you're one fake one.
you're released from the game. You won. You did it.
Amazing.
Some of these character costumes, man, like, can you imagine trying to cosplay as freaking, like, any of the, like, Bootface, and then someone actually walking up and being like, oh my gosh, you're Bootface?
Imagine that some of these characters might actually be, like, kind of threatening if, like, portrayed in the right way, though. Like the Arkham games would have so many like weird pulls, especially like in city and in night, and like they're like weirdly scary. Like
I
you
think
wouldn't think it.
I think that's was one of the reasons why I loved the second Suicide Squad movie so much was because James Gunn just really leaned into the absurdity of some of these C-list villains.
Oh, I love that Polka Dot Man is an actual thing that people know
Yeah.
about now.
Yeah. Like I just really appreciate the fact that he just sort of leaned into like these absurd characters, but the thing that I really loved was the I guess the staying true to their costume designs because I actually think that makes them more interesting and more fun.
I feel
Because
like
you
that's the
can
era
water
we're in now.
down so many superheroes into just like really pathetic, like they just don't look interesting. Their personalities aren't interesting. And when you have like Marvel or DC, you have such a rich vault of characters, whether they're ridiculous or not. Like some of them are just sort of cool, and it's like I want to see that quirky superpower. I'm tired of seeing like the standard superpowers. I want to see someone with the goofiest origin story with the goofiest power actually show up on screen and do something cool.
And that's kind of like what we're getting now. Like I feel
Yeah,
like we're past like not just tied to MCU, but just like in general, we have covered all like the major bases already. We already have Captain America. We already have a wealth of Batman movies. We already have Iron Man, like all the primary Avengers that people, probably knew about. Now people most definitely know about them. And these movies are going to make bank like no matter what. Like
right.
like
Yeah,
Black Adam came out and like not many people like I feel like people know about Black Adam, but not like to a Captain America level, you know?
right. Yeah,
And it's still making bank. Like Disney Plus can make whatever show they want now about like whatever character. Like Moon Knight got a show, and it's like, oh, I remember him from Ultimate Alliance back in like 2006 or something.
I
And you got
actually
that guy got a show.
I have the PS2 Ultimate Alliance game.
Oh, sick.
That one of my favorite aspects about that was just the sheer number of playable characters. Like the character selection screen is probably one of the coolest things in any game I've ever seen. Of just like
Oh, it's
seeing all
great.
these Marvel characters together in one screen, just like I don't know, it gave me chills. I was just like there's so many heroes to play as and they're all just sort of standing next to each other. It was just really cool.
I feel like that was my introduction to just how expansive Marvel was back in
Yeah.
the day. Because like back in 2006 or seven, whenever that came out, it was like Spider-Man. I knew Spider-Man because of the Raimi movies, and then I knew like Hulk because of like Ang Lee, and I knew like the Fantastic Four. But then like outside of like those were like the heavy hitters back then. So seeing like all these other characters just in a line, like the character select screen was just them like in a form, like they're just forming up, like they're just in a like a room posing next to each other. And that was my introduction to like Deadpool. I had never seen Deadpool until I played that game, and I was like, I always picked him because I was like, this guy is such a jerk. like, like I can't believe he's saying all these things. Like, he doesn't even act like a hero. I didn't even know what a anti-hero was like back then. Like, that just wasn't a thing for me.
Speaking of costumed heroes, you dabble a little bit into like would you say it's up to like cosplay? Like you do cosplay stuff every once in a while?
So I call it closet cosplay
Okay.
because you I'm not necessarily as crazy as to like make like foam props to like mimic like armor and weapons and stuff like that. Um, I don't have a 3D printer, so I can't really do that. Not yet. I'm researching,
Not
but
yet. I
not
love that.
yet. But I like doing things on a budget where I just take clothes and see if I can make those clothes into like an actual character that people recognize. So it's like a budget like under $100 cosplay that will still get me attention at conventions and is comfortable to wear. I'll tell you what, cosplay things with pockets. That That is the greatest thing.
And zippers
Yeah,
in case you have to use the bathroom.
like I have a friend that like constant like he's made like an Instagram like social media career off of cosplaying Spider-Man. The reason he works out, the reason he got buff was so he'd look better in a Spider-Man suit. And sometimes people in this cult of his forget that you have to leave a zipper in the crotch area. Otherwise, your convention might not be as fun.
No, it's fine. You just don't drink anything. You just get more and more
You just
dehydrated as the
dehydrate
evening goes on.
yourself.
Man, that Spider-Man's moving real sluggish.
If you
Needs
could
one of
see
those-
under that
he-
mask.
Needs one of those freaking suits from Dune that recycles your body water.
Oh my god, that's actually a great idea. That's a fantastic idea. Like just Spider-Man needs a still suit.
Yeah, I mean, first you have to invent one that wouldn't just be you drinking your own pee.
Okay, Peter Parker could invent that easily. He just like sometimes superheroes come up with things that like just don't exist and they do it so casually. They're like, yeah, I turned a watch into a web shooter, and it's like, what? They're like, yeah, I got the material from a lab. And it's like, why did no one else do that? Like, you don't have to be Spider-Man to do that.
Was there
Like-
was there a favorite costume of yours that you did? Like a favorite cosplay of yours that you've done?
So the one that got the most amount of attention was actually the one that I spent the least amount of effort on. So
Oh.
this cosplay took me just a couple days, like 2 or 3 days,
Uh-huh.
and it was I was getting ready for Fallout 4
Okay.
back in the day, back in high school. Did we say it was 20? I think it's 2015.
When did that game come out?
2015 or 2014? One of those.
No way. No
Yeah,
way.
way.
I have to look this up on the terminal. Hold on. There's
feel
no
old
way
yet?
it came out that many years ago. It's not possible. 2015?
Yeah,
Holy
You're an old man.
smokes.
we're both old people now.
How is that game that old?
I don't know. That
It's
was
been that long since they made a good game. I mean, it's been that long since they made Fallout 4.
now hold on a minute. Now,
Now, hold on just a minute.
But yeah,
So, what was your costume?
I was excited for that game, and so I wanted to do something Fallout like topical. So I looked at like the retro futuristic aesthetic of
Love that.
Fallout, and I was looking at like old school like milkmen, people who deliver milk to your doorstep. But instead,
Okay.
I made it the Fallout drink of choice, Nuka-Cola. So I was just
Oh.
yeah, I was a Nuka-Cola delivery guy. So
That's a
I
fun
just-
twist.
yeah. So I got like white pants, a plain white button up, and like the milkman like delivery cap, like a captain's hat, and put a Vault Tech logo on it, little Nuka-Cola insignia above my chest pocket, and that was it.
I like that though, because you actually thought outside the box and didn't just like pick like a super easy, just like, I don't know, like the Fallout, just a random vault dweller. Like you got the suit and that's it. Because like
Everyone
no
does
shade
that.
thrown to people who do that, but I appreciate the fact that you took the time to make something original, but that people still would identify with that world and with that series, even though it's a completely fresh new concept.
Right, and it's not a superiority complex of like, like I'm too good for this costume that everyone's gonna do. It's not like that at all. It was literally just like if I do that, someone else is probably going to have it better. And I just want to, even if it's like, using my limited abilities, I just want to stretch my creativity as far as I can with the budget I have to like, hopefully get noticed and other people can share that creativity.
I need to start assembling like a list of things that I could like characters that I could easily cosplay. Like I need to actually just start a running list of like whenever I see a character in media, be like, oh, I could absolutely do that. Like that wouldn't be that
I could
difficult.
see you as you ever seen Over the Garden Wall?
Yes, I love Over the Garden Wall.
Okay, it's a great show.
I
I
love that series is one of the best like complete pieces of media that I have come across within the last decade.
Oh yeah, it tells a story like beginning, middle, and end. It doesn't go on any longer than it has to. It's like perfect. It's all wrapped up in a bow. It ends a little quick, but I think they were self-aware of that. But yeah, I was looking into maybe cosplay, doing a closet cosplay for Wirt, and I was thinking I could
Dude,
see
you
you
would.
doing
Oh
Wirt.
my gosh, I
I
just
feel
now
like you
thought of
could do it
that. You
better,
would
honestly.
kill that. You
You
would be
could.
a perfect Wirt.
I almost did it for a Halloween, like either last year or the year before.
That would be so cool. You should
Mhm.
absolutely do that.
It's easy. It's so easy, and everyone's gonna recognize that. Like,
Yeah. It's a cool costume. I actually thought last year when it was introduced to me by my younger sister, I thought about doing like a D&D one shot set in that sort of a world
that could be
where
good.
all your players are kids in Halloween costumes lost in a fantastical wood. And
It's
that's
funny
like
you
the
say that,
premise.
actually, because my girlfriend Natalie just did a one shot for Halloween called like Kids on Bikes, and it's
Okay?
all about yeah, it's essentially like kids that in Halloween costumes that inherit the abilities of their costume. So
That's
like,
literally like what I thought would be cool to try. So how did
yeah,
it go?
she said it went great. She had like one of their party mates did art of all their characters, and
Oh,
it was like a lot of fun. It was like not D&D 5th edition. Like it was its
right.
own weird system that they were kind of like
Homebrew.
experimenting with. It wasn't actually they I think they just found like a module for it
Oh,
online.
cool.
And yeah, she said it went amazing. She's like, I'm sad we can't play that more actually because it's like Halloween themed.
I love that theming of it's like a I don't know, it's softer than a Grimm's fairy tale. Much softer, but I also appreciated the darker places that they were willing to go with it, and they didn't play it super safe as far as the creepiness or scariness factor because they
I
did some pretty spooky
love that.
things.
I
But at the
love
same
shows like made for kids that
yeah.
like don't give a crap about if they traumatize kids, you know? Like, you know what
Yeah,
I'm talking about? Like,
I I appreciated the fact that the tone of the show was such that when something scary or sad happened, it stood out. But at the same time, the rest of the show's overall vibe and feel is more upbeat. So you're not wallowing in that dark feeling the entire time. But since you have those moments, I feel that it enabled the show to go to places that other shows can't, where the tone was I also just loved the like how it would flip things, your expectations of what would happen.
yeah, I'm
Things
thinking of
where
like
you
the
think it's
Endicott
going to be
episode.
dark and then it turns out to be fine. I really like that. And so as far as like so costume stuff, back to like cosplaying stuff. Just curious cuz I know one of the few things I know about you if I was to make a list as far as things you like, Mass Effect. I know that you like Mass Effect. Have you ever done like a Mass Effect cosplay type thing?
I have not dabbled with Mass Effect cosplay because as much as I love it, like I love it to the point where I've gotten a tattoo over it. Like that's my level of investment.
Oh, really?
Yeah. Yeah, so it's like, you know, it's a good and evil scale. So, or rather Paragon and Renegade in this case. So, you know, you get to choose what kind of hero you're going to be because you're always going to be the hero, not
Okay.
not necessarily good or evil. It's just, are you more hard-edged or are you more like diplomatic in the way you
Hmm.
approach things? So, I view that a little bit like the yin and yang. So,
Okay.
I got both symbols like connected tattooed on my arm.
I was just
So
gonna ask, like, as far as that series, because I know that you really like that series, but what about it do you like so much? Like, what's your attachment to it?
I think there's a lot of things I like about it. Like we could talk all day about like world building and lore and like how great that is in Mass Effect. We can just talk about pure aesthetics. I just like the kind of sci-fi future it presents. Um, I could say that how much fun it is to play. It's a lot more active than most other like role-playing games. It feels more like a third-person shooter. And the third game especially, kind of go nuts with like power combinations and like really active Twitch shootery gameplay.
Hmm.
So I appreciate the fact that it's a bit more cinematic and like actiony than most RPGs. But I think above anything else, it's the characters.
The characters. So,
It's a
like,
very character-driven story.
I love me a good character-driven game. Any media really. That's really like any media that's really character-driven and like has good writing, because I think that's one of the biggest things that I like notice between like games and movies and shows is just like the lack of good writing.
Yeah, I mean it's hard to pinpoint because you can't just say like, oh, that's bad writing, and you're like, why though? And it's like, well, just cause, like
Well, okay, I guess I should give an example of like bad writing. So like I don't understand companies, these massive companies who have these very valuable, very precious IPs, and then they hire writers who have either no passion for the story or the lore or the world, or just literally know nothing about it. Like they don't actually read the source material, they don't look at gameplay of the previous game. Like I don't understand choosing someone who has no connection to your franchise to lead the next big project. You should be putting it in the hands of a nerd who loves it, who knows a lot about it.
I can't give you. I mean we can never get an exact answer today, but most problems like that usually stem from the top.
Oh yeah.
The top level business decisions that are more profit driven than creatively driven. So I think that in most cases it's not because people don't want to. It's mostly because other people that are just looking at the profit numbers ultimately get final say on the decisions.
Yeah, but then it also comes back around to it's just so short-sighted, right? Because it's like, okay, you have something that is beloved by a bunch of fans all over the world. They really love it, and maybe they're riding high on success of a previous game. Wouldn't you want to take your time to find the right people to make your next big thing? Like, wouldn't you want to take some time on that process? If it is your big moneymaker, you don't want to screw that up because you don't want to anger the fan base or disappoint them, because that will in turn affect the money side of things. So it's like, why aren't you being more careful with these IPs that people love? If you really cared only about the money, you'd still try and find someone who's going to do a good job with it.
Yeah, I mean, yeah, easier said than done.
I
But I
guess.
would definitely make it a priority to hire writers that are in close contact with like lore masters. That's an actual position that some people have. Lore masters, lore keepers, and their job is just to be like nerds about a topic, like to just understand every fact.
Well, I know, I like that because even on like a micro scale, when you have like a TV show, you have people whose job it is for like continuity. So like
Mhm.
this person was in the background of the previous shot. When we do a close up or we change our camera angle, we need to make sure that that person is still in the background. Or in like as a bad example, like the last season of Game of Thrones. I didn't watch it, but I
Mm.
heard that continuity people like were leaving Starbucks and water bottle cup, like they were leaving stuff on the set and nobody was noticing. Like the continuity people didn't notice
I don't
that.
even know what
Like
happened with
I
that.
can't imagine. So like I sort of see it as that when like what you were talking about with like lore masters, like people whose job it is, because it really has escalated quite a bit, especially with these companies that will dig up older properties and then they have to maintain that continuity, or just series that have been going on for forever, like Doctor Who. Like, I cannot imagine trying to.
You can bet that they have lore masters on
Yeah,
that
I
show.
can't imagine trying to keep track of all the lore
They're
that has
messing
been
with time
built.
travel and like alternate realities and
Yeah, it would be more
basically
difficult.
different characters
Yeah,
and just the Doctor himself.
I feel
Like
like it would be difficult enough to keep things straight with a linear timeline. Like, that would already be like difficult to pinpoint, okay, where was this character? When were they there? Why were they there? And like keeping track of all those threads. The bigger your property gets, the more intense that lore keeping would need to become.
right. I mean, like in the case of like Mass Effect being uh free games, um I know they had character writers. So they would have the lead writers like Drew Carpetian, Mac Walters, and they would handle the bulk of the writing. They're the ones that dictate like how the story goes down overall. They work with the creative lead and whatever like lore keepers they have. And then to get into like the character drama of the series, they have specific character writers. That would be like, this is how this character would respond to this.
See, that's such a good idea.
Or this is how they would fit into the overall story, you know? Like that way you have people that will always be consistent, or at least theoretically they'll always be consistent with that character.
Yeah, and honestly, it's a little bit like, I can't remember. I think it was some video on YouTube talking about how Vince Gilligan, like when it came to writing Breaking Bad or Better Call Saul, like some of the tricks that they used in the writers' room, like the writers were constantly asking the question, like, where's this character's head at? Like, if you needed
Exactly.
content, if you needed an idea for where an episode could go or how to push an episode concept, you say, okay, let's introduce X, Y, or Z, either a character or a completely random event or occurrence. Okay, where's this character's head at? How do they respond to this? What would this character say about this X, Y, or Z? And I think that's so creative. Like, I think in more like popular culture, like the whole idea of Dungeons and Dragons, kind of going back to that of
I was about to say that's how you
you could,
craft NPCs.
yeah, you could literally write a story using D&D to write it, because you I think it prevents characters from sounding too much the same. I'll give you an example. Recently, I'll go to half price books and I'll just snatch a random book off the shelf, and I try to sort of vacillate between like sci-fi, fantasy, or even just regular novels
Just
that are
whatever.
just whatever. And I picked a mystery book up once, and I read all the way through it. And I read about 3/4 of the way through, and I was trying to figure out what was bugging me about this author's writing style, because I was trying to pinpoint it. I was like, there's something off, and I couldn't quite figure out what it was. And it took me till near the end of the book to get there, but I finally figured it out. Her author voice is the exact same as how all of the characters speak. Like, all of her character dialogue sounds the same. They all
It's
sound
tricky.
like her author voice. Like, I don't know, because some author voice is very clinical, almost utilitarian. It's not very colorful, but it gets the job done. And they sort of save all that color and flavor for their characters. But with this author, all of her characters speak like she speaks as the author. And I was like, that's what's so weird about this, is that I feel like I'm in an echo chamber.
Yeah,
Like,
now every character is just a weird extension of herself.
exactly. And it's like, I was trying to figure out what it was. I was like, something's off, and I couldn't figure out what it was. And I was like, they all sound the same. They
That
all
can
use the
work.
same like slang. They all use the same sort of relaxed dialogue. And like, I was like, that's what was bugging me. And so I feel like if you wrote a fantasy story based off of the events that occur in a D&D session, obviously, since you have other human beings and everyone's different and how they play their characters are going to be different, I feel like you're in less danger of slipping into all the characters sounding or behaving the same or behaving predictably.
Yeah, I mean, it's kind of baked into the game itself. Like, you know, just fundamentally, the rule books will tell you that, like, a gnome, for instance, is going to act just a little different than a half orc,
Hmm.
just on a fundamental level. Now, there's two sides to that coin because, like, you shouldn't limit your creativity to the stereotypes of a race. And then, you just got humans and they're like the everything race. They can be anything. And then these other races just have to be more mystical or have to be more brutish. You don't want to fall into that trap necessarily, but it does kind of train GMs and players to creating diverse characters that aren't just like an echo chamber of yourself. Like, they can actually feel really different.
Well, now combining a couple of these things together, I just remembered, I completely forgot that you're the DM for a group of like Dungeons and Dragons, but is also like Mass Effect at the same time.
Yeah, so it's a 5e conversion. So Dungeons and Dragons 5e rule set converted into Mass Effect terminology and ultimately taking place in a Mass Effect setting.
And how's that going?
We are 30 sessions deep, so we are
Dang.
pretty far in,
That's
honestly.
that's a good sign. Has there been any like standout moments to you as the DM, like where your heart swelled up with pride, or like you got the reaction that you wanted from your players?
I'm definitely rooting for the players all the time. I want to see their arcs get fulfilled.
Yeah, because
I
you're a
want
good
them to
DM.
have their heroic moments, but at the same time, I want them to work for it.
Yeah.
Like, like I think the best, like, tabletop session is when the GM beats the crap out of all the characters, like to like single digit HP numbers, or like really like gets like emotion out of your players, even
Yeah.
though it's just like a game with friends. Like, they actually get kind of like into it, and that's when like the magic happens. So I had like an arc where there's two races for context. There's the Quarians and the Geth. The Quarians are an alien race that invented a sentient, like, synthetic race called the Geth to do menial labor, that kind of thing, essentially making them slaves.
Mm-hmm.
But they're AI, so or VI rather. Um, but yeah, they get kicked off their planet, and so when you the player get to Mass Effect, like the story of actual Mass Effect and the trilogy, it's a central conflict that gets talked about a lot. So one of my players is a Quarian, and her parents went missing. So I was like, okay, so now I have the creative liberty of working with two missing parents that
Yeah.
were on some kind of secret assignment, and the rest of the details are up to me, the GM. So my brilliant idea of how to spin that, she had no idea, was that they were sent back to the home world that's overrun with Geth, and they were performing secret experiments about how to end the war, how to end the conflict before it even begins. But
Oh.
eventually their base gets overrun, and their research involving, like, transmitting their personalities into the Geth consensus, um, they have to use that for an emergency situation. They have to transmit their own
Consciousness.
consciousness permanently into Geth
Oh.
units. So
Ah.
they she found a Geth dog. It was like a dog-like thing, and the only words it could say was "kill you." That's all it said. It just said "kill you."
Uh-huh.
And like, I was like, that could be really threatening as a player. This weird thing you've never seen just keeps saying "kill you." Maybe I'll shoot it before it can do something to me. But I knew her. I knew how she was. Anytime a character is even remotely cute, or like she feels bad for anything, it's like a game of Pokemon to her. She's just like
She has
adopting
to
them.
add it to her retinue of
She
characters.
adds it to the collection. So this thing that they start calling Killiu is now one of her pets, essentially.
That's awesome.
And they work with it to figure out like how to find them and like how to retake their planet. And it turns out that the reason that this thing can only say kill you is because in her dad's last moments before their consciousness was abruptly transmitted, is they were getting surrounded by Geth, and he said, "Stay back, or I'll kill you."
Oh,
It had
dang.
only captured his last sentence of speech. So
Wow.
yeah, then they now, like, having unlocked them, they were like, okay, maybe mom's out there too. Maybe we can help her. She's in a big like tank Geth, like the biggest, baddest, scariest Geth unit, and it's actually the final boss of the arc. So I
Dang.
beat the crap out of them. Like, one of my players actually went down unconscious. Another player, uh, two other players were like on death's door, and a couple NPCs were looking pretty rough too. And it would have been so tragic because it's their mom. It's her mom
Yeah.
that's killing them. And but no, eventually they barely managed to free like the Reaper code, like the bad code, out of all these Geth and turn them good.
That's
But now,
so cool.
yeah, and the way my players role played that was so great. Like, this level of like we have them back, but like not quite the same as they once were. But
Yeah.
figuring out how to make this work has been so interesting. I'm so proud of them.
I'd love to be a fly on the wall for one of these sessions. It sounds like so much fun.
Oh my god, it's like kind of like, I know it might sound silly to some people, but like it's kind of one of my favorite things I've ever done, because even though only our group really knows about it, we do actually have links to the privately listed sessions that we've recorded for this game. We only started recording like part way in because we didn't realize like how good this was going to be.
I was just gonna say, you didn't tell me that you've been recording these,
Yeah, they're privately listed, so they're not public.
dude. No,
But
that's
anyone with
that's
a
good.
link,
That's
yeah,
that's good. I'm glad that
yeah,
you need to keep recording that.
yeah. So I'm the GM. I run the game. The Meg, the player that I was talking about, the Quarian player, does all the art. We do art for our characters and stuff. And then Natalie, my girlfriend, runs our social media presence. So
That's
she
so
actually
cool,
records the
dude.
sessions, and yeah, like runs a page. Our ship is called the Stormbreaker. So there's a at Stormbreaker Crew on Instagram.
Okay, all right.
uh, if you want to see some of our exploits.
Yeah, that's so cool. So
I think we're also on Twitter as well. She's the one that runs all that. So
yeah, I have to check that out. I had no idea that there was actual like evidence outside of what you've told me of this
yeah,
because it sounds so freaking
it's a
cool.
shame we weren't recording from the beginning, because we're just friends trying to do a cool thing.
What
And
you should do is if like you ever want to, you get that artist to almost do like a storyboard of what you remember of the first couple episodes or however many before you started recording in like animatic form, so just like panels, like still shots, sort of setting
actually,
up everything that happens before.
I definitely was thinking about maybe reaching out to you, because I know you do like really awesome little art. Like, you do, I love your character designs that you come up with on like your drawing account. Like,
Oh, thank you.
it's like one after another, an inventive design that I like. I was just like, I'm amazed this came out of the same person's brain. Just one after another. It just keeps getting bigger. Like, the roster, like it could be like its own like Smash Bros cast or something. Like, it could be
That's the plan. Dimension 1049 is growing. It's just my character wastebasket, where it's like I have this character I made in Skyrim. I beat the game. Well, I loved this character, so I'm just gonna draw
let's
him and
keep
add him
him.
to the universe.
Keep him. Keep the idea of him at least.
Yeah, exactly. I did the same with Fallout 4, ironically. I did the same thing with Dragon's Dogma and Destiny. Like all these characters that I really spent time developing in my own head. I'm like,
Mm.
I don't want them to just exist in that one form. I want them to transcend that. So they get to keep all the accolades and the things that they did, but I get to sort of like open up a nice little portal for them to join my cast of characters.
Yeah, I remember like when you made. I had like a character from Mod Nation Racers, if anyone remembers that game. and you drew my character from Mod Nation Racers, and I was like, okay, his legacy lives on, even though the servers are shut down in the actual game. I'm not crying. I'm not
Oh, I
upset.
freaking loved your character design. I need to do an updated version of that character because the whole concept of like a little like mechanic goblin type thing was just like a really appealing design, but with like a fun like racer flair.
Yeah.
Like I'm
My friends
trying to.
always called him a toboggan racer. That's not what I imagined, but you know,
No, I need to redraw that character because I freaking loved that design, like that idea, like the combination of those things were just so good. But
I was
yeah, I'd love
literally
to see like if you guys ever did like an animatic or something, and maybe you like narrate it, so you have like subtitling, like a black screen with the panels, and you just sort of do still shots that sort of fade in, and you get to sort of explain like the first how many sessions before you guys actually started recording.
I think it was like 14 or 15. So
Okay,
like
so like
pretty decent
halfway.
way in. So you know, they started on Pluto. Like that's how they, cuz the hardest thing to write was just how to intertwine all these characters' stories at the beginning, because I know like the best way to do that is to just introduce a shared conflict. You know, they all have combat together and then they bond over that initial combat, or some tragedy happens and they're all involved in some way. Like that's like the best way to group a bunch of D&D players together. And so yeah, I had, spoiler alert for Mass Effect. I mean, it's not much of a spoiler, but like Reapers do arrive, these ancient sentient machines that come back to the Milky Way galaxy every like every like hundreds of thousand years. I think it's 50,000 years, but yeah, they're caught in that era, and they'll have to escape this base on Pluto that they were there for different reasons. And they find this like prototype ship, the Stormbreaker, and they just kind of are like, okay, well, we're here now. My girlfriend's character Piper just kind of assumed the role of navigator, and I gave her just the galaxy map and was like, pick where you want to jump to, like to escape this Reaper.
That's
And she was
so
like,
cool.
and I was like, you have like a couple seconds. And she was just like, this one, this is far enough away. And it was just like the middle of nowhere, like
Ah, perfect.
the K.O.T.D.T Rift is just their ship was left like broken. So they're left out and just drifting in the middle of space, bonding with this crew they just met and each other. And they had to make this like last ditch effort. Like, if this doesn't work, we're just screwed. Like, they had to get this material called Element Zero to power their ship's like drive core to like get out of the system. And the only planet that they had two planets they could have chosen, and they picked a lava planet that was rich in Ezo. And as they were mining it, you know, you kind of get like biotic energy rubbed off on you if you get too close to this stuff. And
Hmm.
biotics are essentially like the Force from Star Wars, you know,
Okay.
manipulation of mass to do telekinetic stuff. And it kind of wore off for most of the party members. Like, once they were out of there, it was fine. But like for Natalie's character, it kind of stuck. So it's like, uh-oh,
Uh,
did your character have biotic potential?
ooh.
Yeah. And now she's like trying to find her lost brother, who's also like some crazy biotic. And anytime, once they found him, like they accidentally like touched, like, and like just at the slightest touch, they both like essentially got flashbanged, and they like got sent backwards, and so they have like this weird biotic connection. And I'm like, huh,
See,
like
that this is the thing that I just love about GMs who know what they're doing. But I feel like it goes the other way too, where you have to have players who know how to play D&D-esque games properly. And I think that comes from some players don't understand that the job of the dungeon master is not to create the stakes for you all
it's a
by
yes and
himself.
it's improv.
It's right. It's like you have to give me stuff to work with. Like if you want me to make stakes, I think that's one of my least favorite like I guess, caricatures or archetype of a player where it's just, I'm just here to be cool and do combat and do quips, and I didn't take any time to develop my character's backstory because who needs that? It's like,
That's fine.
I
You
can't
can
create all of the stakes for you if you don't give me material to work with.
like it's okay if you because the GM will have session 0 and they'll kind of establish what kind of game they plan on running. And sometimes the answer is we're having a joke campaign and or we're just focused on having fun. And it's okay if you want to play the bard that is just aggressively like horny or like just full
Just
of jokes all the
of
time,
the bard who's just
So,
constantly hitting on everything and
yeah,
everyone.
that's you can do that. One of my players, Meg's husband Aaron, is a plays a Krogan, a big essentially a big brutish space turtle.
I like it.
Everyone, like Natalie hands me 6 pages of backstory for her human sniper character. One of my other Aquarium players, Jane, plays Wan Shilan. He's also a sniper, like infiltrator type. That's like 3 pages of backstory. So it's like, okay, a little less, but still pretty in depth.
I like where this is going.
Meg hands me a page, and I'm like,
Okay.
that's pretty good. That's about what I would give somebody. And
Yeah.
like, Aaron gives me a paragraph. And
But
I'm
at least
just
it's
like,
something, right?
it was something, but it was literally like, I am a Krogan. I am old. I used to be a war veteran. That's kind of it. And it's just like, okay, don't know what to do with that. So just recently, like literally like a couple weeks ago, I found an arc that I think he would finally flourish in, because for the most part, he's a little more checked out than the other players. Not to like bash Aaron or anything, but like, he's the one that gets like distracted the easiest. He's the one that doesn't necessarily like offer like the emotional moments where
Right.
I'm
His
like,
character's a
you
little
hand
bit
me
more
the backstory
disaffected
and I
by what's
set
going
something up and
on.
then you spike it back down, like
Yeah.
in this glorious fashion. He's more just like, the presence that's always like the happy warrior type,
Yeah.
the big lovable brute, and that's what he adds. So I finally found an arc where he could actually like explore some deeper character stuff, because they found a pirate planet. It's literally called Tortuga.
Ah,
Quite
yes.
literally. It's a real thing in the Mass Effect universe.
Perfect.
So they are on a pirate planet where aggression is actually rewarded and good manners are not
Shunned.
encouraged. Yeah. Like, like this pansy,
Yeah,
like,
this wuss.
yeah, versus, if a bar fight breaks out and you crack a bottle over someone's head, everyone goes, yeah,
Yeah.
like that kind of environment.
Love that. Love that.
But so far, he's actually weirdly passive. Like his other party mates are actually like being a bit more chaotic than he normally is, even in this environment. And it's leading to some really interesting character stuff where it's like he's kind of entering this phase of like, I'm just so old, I'm so tired of conflict,
Mm.
It's kind of this route he's going down. I'm so proud of him for doing that. Like it's the first time I feel like it is truly like a yes and with him. Like I presented these characters that would think of him one way, and he subverted all of our expectations.
I recently I don't understand why YouTube has a way of recommending certain videos to me again and again and again. It's like trying to get me to cave and watch it. And the thing that bugs me is oftentimes it is something that I was like, oh, maybe I would. Like that is something that I think is kind of cool.
That is the point of recommended feeds.
Is
You ignore most of them, but then you're like, ooh, for
There's a
the random
video
thing.
about liminal spaces that I've been dodging that keeps on getting put in front of me because
I think that's the universe telling you you should at least watch some of it.
well, liminal spaces, that's the thing, is like, because obviously you got the back rooms, which is like a prime example, I
That's
think,
like,
of
yeah.
liminal space. But obviously the horror part is added in there. But because I was trying to figure out, I was like, what actually is liminal space? And so I looked it up on the terminal, and this is what this website says. It says a liminal space is a space between spaces. A liminal space is a boundary between 2 points in time, space, or both. It's the middle ground between 2 grounds, the mid-structure between 2 structures. When you're in a liminal space, you're neither here nor there, neither this nor that. At the same time, you're both here and there, both this and that. Liminal spaces have liminality, a concept borrowed from social anthropology. The word limen means threshold in Latin. In some primitive cultures, there are rites of passage to mark the transition of people from one state to another. For instance, transitioning from childhood to adulthood or from being unmarried to being married are accompanied by elaborate rites of passage in such cultures. And then I kept reading through it because it came up with a very interesting, I guess, example of what a liminal space actually is. It says, physical liminal spaces. Almost all of us, when we were kids, tried to walk on the bathroom or street tiles so as to not touch the boundary of those tiles. Those boundaries were the liminal spaces between the tiles. So that filling that's between the tiles, those lines, that's a liminal space. So
that you just created for yourself and
right.
your
So
child
a physical place that serves as a connecting place between 2 places is a liminal space. For instance, corridors connecting 2 rooms are liminal spaces. Streets, roads, airports, train, and bus stations connecting 2 destinations are liminal spaces. So are hallways, stairs, and elevators. All of these places are transitory places. We're not supposed to stay in these places for too long, unless, of course, you own a shop or something at an airport. Then the place loses its liminality and becomes a destination. The same thing happens when your flight or train is delayed and you're forced to stay. The place loses its original purpose and liminality. It both feels and doesn't feel like a destination. Something seems off about the place.
Oh, it's so interesting how it's like definable yet so abstract at the same
Yes.
time.
See, that's the thing that I find fascinating. And also, just sidebar, like that's literally like half the time I'm walking around this office building, it's like a liminal space. Like hallways are changing. Nothing ever looks the same, which is kind of interesting. You know, I have my theory that the building is secretly alive somehow, but I don't actually want to come across the truth because I might make my brain explode. But that was just something I kept thinking about was liminal spaces, because I've heard people talk about liminal spaces, and I'm probably guilty of talking about liminal spaces without really knowing what the heck it means.
I'm afraid I'm no expert either, but
it's something
very
that
intriguing though.
I'm gonna have to read more about it because it's fascinating stuff. And like anytime there's like, I guess I'll cycle back to this because it's something that I've asked previous like people who have been on the podcast. I don't know why I stopped asking it because it's always an interesting answer anytime. Is as an example, so like if you could select a place to be completely emptied out of people, with the exception of maybe you and a small group of friends, but have an entire location or building to yourself, where would it be? So like as an example, I had one of the guests say like a fairground or a circus, and I loved that. One person said a museum. One person said an observatory. I said Kosai.
Kosai is a great answer, honestly. That's like the kind of vibe I was immediately thinking of.
Right. Like lights on, everything is functional, but there's no people.
Yeah.
Would just be so fascinating. Do you have one? Because I feel like everybody has like a list of places where they'll travel as a kid and just imagine, oh, if I had this place to myself, that'd be so much fun.
Man, can I like combine like 2 locations?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, absolutely.
So you ever been to like North Market?
Yes. Yeah.
Okay. Think like North Market. So it's like just a collection of businesses all in a room, all together. And we have a variety of selection to choose from, but it's empty. But the place we choose to occupy, the space we choose to occupy, is a cafe, like a coffee cafe, built into this North Market-esque environment.
I love how specific that is. That's so cool. I love that.
That's just my brain. That's my brain.
No, absolutely. Like I just love that thought. And I think adding the caveat of saying, oh yeah, if like other people were there, because I think if you were all by yourself, it wouldn't be the same. Wouldn't be the same feeling. I don't think if you were just walking around, there was no one. That's why I say like if you just had the run of a place for like a night.
Yeah, and there was like the idea of like other cultures, other aspects of life being represented by these other like food stalls essentially, but we choose to occupy just this one. In the
Yeah.
same way that, like, how do you like to spend your free time, you know? Well, I mostly choose it, you know, in various aspects of storytelling. Various forms of storytelling is how I like to spend my free time, whether it's playing games, watching a movie, running tabletop, playing tabletop, or reading a book or something. It's stories that are my main driving force outside of like the grind of work. Like I want to keep advancing myself creatively and see what other people are coming up with, and hopefully make it a collaborative experience like it is with my campaign.
So here's a fun question for you that almost broke my brain. Using the strictest terms of liminal spaces, because there can be physical ones, but also non-physical liminal spaces. When you do your Mass Effect campaign, the question becomes at a certain point, is the campaign a liminal space between reality, like for a minute you sort of escape reality into this other world, but at some point for some people it's very possible that existence, real life, becomes a liminal space between sessions where they have complete freedom.
It doesn't really take a session to make it like just like to make it so I've crossed into like another threshold, if I'm understanding the
Yeah,
definition. Like I'll be like at work or just walking, like just around or just minding my own business, doing extraneous activity, and I'll just think about the series. Like that's the level I'm at with it. Like there are a few things I would say I have like an obsession with, but this would be like one of them, I'd admit to. It's like constantly living rent free in the front of my mind is how I like to describe it. So,
valid.
um,
Valid.
I'll just think about like all these things. And before I had the campaign, I even did this. So the fact that they've given me an outlet for all these creative ideas, whether it's reminiscing on the actual series or what its future could be like or what I could add to it at some point, I'm so glad I can have this opportunity to share it with these people, even if like no one watches the recordings, we didn't, even if Natalie didn't run any kind of social media presence whatsoever. Like, I would love to just share it with like 4 other people and like have that outlet. So I feel like that feeling of like disconnect that I just get from like essentially daydreaming about it, like crossing into a liminal space. It's like that on steroids in a session. Like I am not thinking about anything in the real world whenever we do that. Like we are just there, and I don't know. I can't speak for the others' level of investment, but I'm sure they feel that to some extent.
That is so cool. And you know what? On that note, we're going to end off. I'm going to turn the recording off, just sort of let the terminal float away. You want to try and cook something in here?
I can try. So we have like our secret sauces, right? But again, all of it is just written. I can't even read it myself.
We could just sort of slap some stuff together, make a space cake. It'll be
I,
fine.
I mean, I can tell it's like certified. Like I see the check mark,
Yeah, I
but
mean,
like,
some of these tentacles probably aren't connected to anything that's still alive. So I think we're fine.
no, yeah, they wouldn't give us these if they weren't safe.
Of course not. Our company is primarily concerned with safety. That's why they gave us the holy water.
Right. I mean,
Well,
they wouldn't have given us that only for me to discard after I rinse my hydro flask.
it's fine. It's fine. All right, we're gonna make a space cake. But yeah. So long, everyone. Thanks for listening to this podcast episode, and thanks, Mitch, for being on. And we will see you guys next time.
Thanks for having me.